Hey everybody, let's jump into this project for Mythos, a clothing brand. And I'll tell you what they're looking for here is this is going to be a DTF transfer that's going to go on a black shirt. Now using the halftone method, they want to make this feel softer. In other words, not print this as a giant patch. And if I go ahead and add a layer, drag it down here and hit Shift Delete, that'll bring up the fill. I'll go ahead and fill that with black. You can see here that there are a few challenges. Also, they want this on top of that composited. You see all of this text and filigree, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But on this art here, there's some challenges, and that is there's not a lot of black in here to really blend into the shirt. So we're going to have to change that. Also, we don't want a hard edge here when it comes to the edge of the transfer. That will not transition well at all. Now what I like to do is select the art, and if I have to extend the canvas I will. In this case I don't, but I'm just going to select the art and then inverse that selection and come up to generative fill and then just click generate. And I think you can do that through the crop tool as well. Now it gave me 3 choices over here in the properties menu, so I'm just going to look at each one. It really looks like that first one is pretty good there. So I'm just going to go ahead and merge visible. And now I'm going to make a selection, kind of keeping this square here. And once I have my selection here, I'll go up to modify and feather. Let's try 35 pixels and hit OK. You'll notice it rounded the corners here a little bit, but more importantly, now if I click layer mask, what I've done is I've put a semi-transparent fade around the edges. Now I'm going to undo a couple of steps and give it just a little bit more. Let's go with 40. Same thing, layer mask. At least the edge is faded well. The next thing I'm going to address is the elephant in the room, and that is the color in the design and getting more black in here. So I brought up the levels, and you can see there's no like really super dark colors in here. This is kind of spread out. There's no pure white. There's no pure black here. So I'm just going to drag down and bring in some of these darks. I'm also going to get some pure white in here, at least down in this low edge here of where the color's sitting. And now we can play around with the midtones. And once again, I know the more dark I bring into this, the more of the shirt that I can get to show through when it comes to doing the halftoning. A lot of this dark stuff we're going to end up losing in the end. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK there. And now let's jump over to this image here that I've got on this black background so I can really see what's going on. This is going to go on top here. And if we look at this, there are some little pieces here that probably don't belong. You can see where some of this filigree was cut. So now's our chance to go ahead with the eraser tool and try to just clean up and or soften up some of this stuff. There was another piece down here that I don't think needs to be under the P there. There's a couple little crumbs up here. And I'm not going to get too crazy with this, but this is where you sort of take on a little artistic license, as they say. But for the most part, I'm going to leave it alone. Now I'm just going to command click this and copy, and we're going to drop it over here and size if necessary. Okay, I'm guessing that they actually sized these 2 pieces together. So now I really just want to position this Now, something that's really sticking out to me is this corner here, and that's because of all the light coming from this direction, whereas these are all kind of subdued. Now, what we can do is just go ahead and paint with a soft black brush. So we're just going to grab a brush and turn the hardness all the way down. And we can maybe eliminate this to a great degree, just so it doesn't stick out. These darker corners are going to disappear anyway. A lot of this stuff will not survive the DTF halftoning. Now, this is a good place to go ahead and save your Photoshop file before we flatten and resize everything. And I'm going to do a little quick crop here. And now we can go ahead and flatten the image. And let's go to the image size. So if we look in the physical dimensions, this thing is huge, but it's only 96. So we can do it all right here. There's another process using the Neuro filters and super zoom. But for this, I'll just go ahead and show you right here. I know we want the overall image to be around 14 when it's a transfer, and that's going to extend out to the white on these edges here. So I better go ahead and make this thing actually about 15 wide, and then go ahead and put 300 in the resolution. And now it's time to make a copy of the background. Right click and convert to a smart object. And we're going to go ahead and double click into that smart object and go to the mode and switch it to grayscale. Now when we bring the levels up, here's what we're looking for. In our shadow end here, all of this black, or anything that you end up making pure black, that's going to knock out of our art and become transparent in the transfer file, where everything that is pure white here is going to be preserved and will make it on the transfer. Now you can see if I push these highlights up, we lose a lot of this detail in the design. So you have to be very careful and just be aware that what is white in the job is going to be solid. What's black is going to be gone. And then in this gray area here, that is what is going to be halftone and giving us that soft feel where they're still printing. Now in the end, we're going to lose a lot of color and detail in the background, but that's just the nature of the beast. When the original art wasn't utilizing black to any kind of degree, we just sort of had to adulterate that color of the design and then the transfer itself. And remember, this is an experiment. So when you're done with this, you want to prototype this and see if you're happy. If you're not, you'll come back and do another version of this where you may take out more or leave more behind. So now we're going to go to mode bitmap, keep it at 300 and halftone screen. Now this number here, the frequency, that is actually the dot size. The smaller, the bigger the dot. But the easier for the DTF to print, especially if you're not with a high-end commercial printer or someone that is giving you top notch. So if you're in control and you have your own DTF printer, then you may push this up clear to 45. But I like to stay around 35 for most projects where I'm not actually handling the transfer. I keep the angle at 26, and typically I'm going to use ellipse, round, and then sometimes I like using a line tone depending on the art. Now, when you hit OK here, we're just going to close and save. So back in our original file here, we're just going to make sure you're selected on this mask you just made and select all and copy. And now we're going to hide that layer, jump down, here and create a layer mask. And then we're going to Option or Alt on the PC, click into that layer mask and paste our new mask. Now when we click, we actually get to see the transfer as it's going to be printed. To give you a better idea what it's going to look like on black, just add a layer, drag it down below, Shift Delete, that brings up the fill, set to black and hit OK. Now as we look in here, we can see the halftone dot and where it's contributing to our design. For all intents and purposes, you can now just hide this and then go to File, Export, Quick Export as PNG, and then save that PNG, and that's what you're going to send to the printer. Now, a lot of times I'll jump over here to Placeit.net. I'll select a mock-up model like this. Let me change the shirt color to black here. And then for the design, I'm going to upload a smaller version of this PNG file, and I can see what it looks like in a realistic model mock-up situation. Save this file also as a Photoshop document, and if you need any changes, you can always go right back to this file